Imagine growing up full of questions about who you are, not quite fitting into the boxes the world offers, but not yet having the language to describe yourself. Now imagine turning that journey into a powerful story that helps others find their own words too. A memoir that has sparked national conversations about identity, courage, and the freedom to read. And it has also become one of the most challenged books in America, with honesty and vulnerability that have inspired readers across generations. This author has reminded us that storytelling can be both deeply personal and universally human. Winner of the Alex and Stonewall Book Awards, and a fearless voice for authenticity and free expression. Please welcome the creator of Genderqueer, a memoir.
Maia Kobabe.
When you were young, which books or comics had the most impact on you?
There's so many. It was hard for me to narrow this down. Yes, my parents read a ton of books to me and my sibling when we were kids. Some that definitely stand out are the Alana series by Tamora Pierce. The series is called The Song of the Lioness, and it's a story about a girl who disguises herself as a boy to train as a knight and then become sort of a protector of the kingdom and a protector of those who are weaker than her. And I really related to this. I also loved the Hobbit and Narnia series. I loved the Redwall books about small animals fighting plucky battles. And I also got to read and hear a lot about different mythologies from around the world, especially Greek, Egyptian, Norse, and Arthurian myths and legends. And I really enjoyed all of those as well.
Yeah, back then I really loved the Percy Jackson series. So actually, I
Mm.
really loved Greek mythology at the time.
Yes, I'm a little bit older than you, I think. And so when those books were coming out, I was already in college. But if I had been a little bit younger, I think I would have been obsessed with Percy Jackson.
You've mentioned being dyslexic and not learning to read until 11 years old, often
Mm,
taking in stories through audiobooks or being read aloud.
mm.
How did that listening first start and shape your approach to storytelling?
Yes, I also went to Waldorf school, and a lot of the education in Waldorf school is done through verbal storytelling that the students are listening to and then often drawing at the same time. And I think through a combination of learning through a lot of listening, having my parents read out loud books to me and my sibling, through us being in middle school, even into junior high maybe, and then also listening to a ton of books on cassette tapes or CDs. I just got really used to intaking stories, usually while I was drawing or crafting. And then I think how it really influenced me is I became very used to listening to a story and then interpreting it through drawing. And I definitely think that has very much impacted my career as a cartoonist.
Genderqueer began as a private comics for family and
Mm,
friends before becoming a public memoir.
mm.
What was the moment you knew it needed to reach a wider audience? And did anything change once you made that decision?
I think the thing that made me realize I wanted to publish it more widely was I was starting to share it with some friends and family, and then I was starting to put it on Instagram, but I didn't have a lot of followers at that time. Is that people in my life, including people I'd known since I was in elementary school, started coming out to me because I had been willing to be open and vulnerable about my feelings about gender and sexuality and identity. Other people then felt safe approaching me with those feelings and saying sometimes hey, I've really wrestled with this as well. And sometimes it was people that I never would have guessed were questioning their gender because it didn't show at all in kind of their outward presentation. And I think that experience of having people come out to me made me realize I think these stories or these ideas, these comics could be actually a really useful tool for other people to start these conversations with their own family and their own friends and their own communities and loved ones. And, or it would be a coworker from a job that I liked and obviously we friended each other, but we hadn't had an intimate conversation about our identities because we mostly knew each other in a work setting. So yeah, it was sort of unexpected people who reached out to me. And I was very touched. I was very honored by, those conversations and that those people felt safe to bring that to me. And it made me realize there's more people than I realized, even in my own life, who are questioning these things, and more people than I realized who could benefit from these stories. Yeah.
Was there any one conversation that you specifically remember?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely a few. I also think that pretty quickly people started to, reach out to me online. And after the book came out, one that's very memorable is someone who wrote to me and said, I think it was a teenager. And it's I gave the book to my parents and I, had been asking for new pronouns, non-binary pronouns, and my parents had been really kind of struggling with it. And after reading the book, they're now trying way harder to use my pronouns. The book helped them, the parents, realize why it was important or like what the act of asking for someone to use new pronouns for you, what it kind of meant, or like that it was just the tip of an iceberg of a like much wider and bigger questions about or topics about identity and sexuality. And so hearing like your parents read this book and it has made like a material and like direct difference in your life, like that was really cool.
Looking ahead 10 years, what do you hope normal looks like for queer and trans stories in classrooms, libraries, and bookstores? What do you want the landscape to feel like for the next generation?
I mean, I definitely hope that within 10 years, we are no longer dealing with this heightened level of book bans and book
Okay.
challenges, and that libraries are no longer under attack, public education is no longer under attack, and that authors are not having to expend so much of their effort and energy just defending books, defending the freedom to read, defending the freedom of information. But I also hope specifically for trans and non-binary folks, especially students, that it is not such a big deal, that it just isn't as much of an issue, especially for young people who are still in school, that schools have the infrastructure and the curriculum and the sort of education to support queer and trans students, and that it is just joyful and fun and easy and is not such a fight to exist authentically as themselves, especially in school settings. I really hope that our current sort of like moment just sort of dies down a bit and that everyone can just like live a little bit more easily and that the big things we're focusing on as a society shift in a different direction, especially shifting towards focusing on things like climate change or, income equality or, addressing like food scarcity and just like some of the other issues that our society is facing and that we can stop demonizing queer and trans
Focusing
people.
all our energy on
Yes,
book bannings.
exactly.
Yeah.
And focus instead on like different issues that are impacting everyone and let especially queer and trans students just live authentically and easily and grow up to become the change makers that we need in this world.
Has anyone ever questioned you for your values? Because I know that your book is especially controversial.
People who are not a fan of my book have definitely questioned my values and where I'm coming from. But it is very clear to me when people are challenging my book, so often they haven't even read it because they make statements about it that are completely factually inaccurate, or statements that are deliberate falsehoods. And so I don't really feel the need to listen to and take the critiques of people who are not reading my work in good faith and are simply disliking it because of who I am as a person. I would say I haven't had like good faith readers, fans or people who related to the book question it, other than a couple of times people saying like, I wish you had talked about this more, or like, I wish you had maybe gone a little bit deeper into this. But I feel like that's the kind of thing that happens anytime you publish a book. It's not possible to cover every single topic. And the solution is just to keep writing more books. So hopefully that if someone said, I wish you talked more about the parent relationship, or I wish you talked more about, topics that would be useful to young children or junior high, it's like, okay, well, I'll just write another book in the future that hopefully will cover the basis for that readership group or that theme.
Did you have any struggles growing through using different pronouns besides, he and she?
I didn't
And
start using, oh, sorry, keep going.
no, no, what challenges and lessons did that bring to lead you to write the current books that you have now?
I didn't start using non-binary pronouns until I was in my mid-20s. So I didn't have that experience of using non-binary pronouns when I was in school or a child. I was definitely thinking about gender a lot and I was wrestling with it, but I was a kid in the late 90s and early 2000s when it was not as well known and I didn't hear about someone using specifically they them pronouns like until I was in my 20s. But definitely as an adult, it's still an ongoing conversation. I still have to come up with different situations where I wonder, like, is this the right moment to correct someone of my pronouns? Or is it worth it in this setting to try to bring it up and to ask people to use them? And I definitely have to pick my battles. Like, I don't tend to correct, like, for example, a waiter in a restaurant on my pronouns because that's not someone that I'm in relationship with or that I'm gonna meet many times or who's gonna know me long term. I mostly just want them to remember my food order. But anytime I'm going to be in a relationship with someone where I'm like, I am going to talk to this person multiple times, I want them to know who I am. I want them to understand who I am as a person and where I'm coming from. And we have a rapport, or we have, we're colleagues, we're coworkers, we're friends. That's when it is really important for me to know what my pronouns are and get them right, or at least make their like best faith effort. Because it's very similar to knowing what someone's name is. Like if you were to have a friend who you called them the wrong name for like over a year. It's like you're not paying attention to who that person is, and you're not like listening to them when they say like this is who I am. And I feel really similarly about pronouns. If it's someone, who's just calling my name at like the airport, like Maia Kobabe, please get to, the check-in. This is last call. I'm like that person. If they mispronounce my name, it doesn't matter very much as long as I can hear them. But if it's someone that I am going to work with, be in community with, be in collaboration with, that's really important.
I want to close by acknowledging your courage in sharing Genderqueer with the world, a book that has become one of the most challenged and talked about titles in the country. It
Mm.
takes incredible bravery to tell such a story, so personal and so openly, especially when it's been at the center of national debates about identity, expression, and the freedom to read. For so many readers, queer and non-queer alike, your work has opened so many doors of understanding, honesty, and self-acceptance. Thank you for using your voice and art to remind us that visibility itself can be an act of resistance. And thank you for continuing to tell the stories that help us all see ourselves. Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me on this conversation, and thank you for your work in highlighting banned books and banned authors. I know you've talked
Yeah,
to many of my colleagues and many of my friends, and I'm glad that you're highlighting this subject because it's really important.